let's go ahead and check the sound. Should have an improved audio setup. Oh yeah, that sounds great. Okay, cool. So, let's start to try to loosen up here a little bit. Oh man. Just one of those days where the body has not felt at its best, you know, like a 3 or 4 out of 10. But some days are like that, right? And you're still gonna have to swing and play and Hey, Ritwick, what's up, dude? First one to hop in the stream, I think. Welcome. Hope you're having a good day. This part is very important, trying to make sure you don't injure yourself by just being excited to swing, because that's always my inclination too. Is like, oh man, now that I can just hit in here whenever I want with this net, I should just start hitting, and that would be fun. But I know this is better. Ritwick said you got to practice and play today. That's awesome. Those days are the best when you just get to fill up the day with practicing in golf. Important to stay hydrated, of course. Yeah, see, guys, even just that little bit of stretching. Take 3 or 4 minutes for you. Start swinging and try to loosen up. Can make a big difference. Woo. It's very possible, guys, that we might hit 1,000 subscribers on this live stream. Just like we had our new net came the other night on the live stream. I think it could happen in real time. We're like 30 subs away, I think. Something like that. So it's definitely possible. We're going to give it a try. Trying to get loose, which again is so insane to me. My goal when I started the channel was maybe at the end of the first year I could have 1,000 subscribers. You know, if I posted every day, multiple videos. So I've been blown away by the amount of support and, you know, just how cool people are in the comments, in the live stream chat. It's been really fun, really rewarding. I had somebody reach out to me that was interested in doing a collaboration. That was really cool. So all these, you know, kind of little things that show some progress and some validation, I think, has been really, really fun. By the way, you should use a Persian Meal. It helped me with distance. Ritwick, what is a Persian Meal? Tell me more about this. Christina said hi and is new. Hey, Christina. Vanessa also said hi. Hey, guys. Hey, Maxon Hubbard's in the chat. What's up, Maxon? Welcome back. Maxon was in the... Shout out to Maxon in the comments saying, hey, when's the next live stream going to be? And there I was thinking, you know, I don't know if people actually enjoy watching this stuff. So to get a really nice comment like that from Maxon, that was great. Always good when the first swing of the day is dead out of the middle. I will tell you what, though, the allergies, seasonal allergies are getting me. Couple good, really good strikes in a row. Just focused on tempo still. So yeah, a lot of new people. Jung Mi said, hi bro, I'm new. Hey Jung Mi. Oh, workout club. A Club L. Interesting. I'm going to have to look into this, Ritwick. Thank you for the recommendation. I have the super speed system. I've done this before. This is like an overspeed concept, and there's different weights. Although I am missing one of them at the moment. And I could probably have enough room to do this in here. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll start doing 3 times a week speed training live streams. And you guys we can track our progress. We'll get the launch monitor out. And we'll start with a baseline. And we can all just kind of follow along together. If we do 30 days of speed training 3 times a week is what they recommend. I wonder what kind of progress we can make. That could be pretty fun. Welcome to the stream if you guys are new. We chat about all kinds of stuff, not just golf, and answer questions. I'd love to do like some free lessons, you know, answer questions from people. This net is set up where I live, yes. Starting to get loose. I do need to find the green super speed club though. That would be important for trying to do the 30 days of speed training. Would help to have the proper equipment, but yeah, that could be, and then we could also, you know, do like a quick before and after video, post it on the channel. I've been trying to find more ways to do longer form stuff. But some of you guys may or may not know, but all the shorts and the videos have been shot, you know, filmed by me with just my phone, just an iPhone, and edited on my phone too. So, not exactly a high resource operation yet. But someday I'm hopeful to be able to do more of that stuff. And just kind of keep increasing the quality and doing some of that. Let me catch up here quick. Ritwick asks, what things do I like other than golf? Good question. I used to ride motorcycles a lot, but I do not any of that anymore. It's a lot of golf. I like gardening, hanging out with my dogs. The net maxed in, I think, was $6.95. So it's certainly not cheap. I mean, it's you call it a premium net product. It's called the Net Return. This is the Pro Series one. But I felt it was worth investing in, and now that I've got it set up and I've hit into it a bunch, I'm really happy that I decided to do go the route of buy once, cry once, because I think I'll have this thing for quite a while. It really does what it's supposed to do. You truly only need one golf ball to hit into. It does, you know, pops right back to you. And you might be able to see there's probably only, you know, 3 or 3.5 feet between the net and this barn door here. So, and I've never once had to worry about, you know, it hitting that wall or door behind me and kind of rocketing anywhere. So, I've been really happy with the quality of this product so far. You know, I'm not a big free ads guy, but free ad for the Net Return, I suppose. If you guys want to get involved and sponsor the channel, that would be sweet, because I'm a huge fan of the product already. What else? Solo G asks, what's your opinion on grip size? Do you think bigger grips are better or just a preference? I do think it is a preference. However, I will share, for the last, you know, decade or however long I basically played golf, I used like a standard grip, you know, one wrap. It feels awful in my hand now, actually, to be honest. And I have switched to like a more built-up mid-size grip this year. And I do think it's helped. And even to the point where I'll probably go even bigger next season and try the jumbo or maybe, you know, a couple more wraps of tape. Because I really have been happy with the results, and it forces me to, I can't throw it at the club or at the ball quite as much, right? You know, it kind of softens the impact that your hands have through the hit, which for me was something that I desperately needed, right? You know, when my swing got bad, I was really just like kind of throwing it, you know, I'm exaggerating, but so my personal experience has been that the bigger grips have been better. How often do you have off days on course? Played my worst in a few years today. Has me shook a bit. Yeah, good question, Josh. And something I think that I wish there was more instruction about is just like, you know, dealing with the volatility of golf. Because, you know, we show up every day and you're like, well, if I play my best, I'll shoot, say for me is like 68, right? You know, that could be 82 for you. That could be 95, you know, whatever it is. And then if you know, have a day that's towards the outside of the range, right? You know, towards your worst score. So for me, that would be like a, you know, call it an 80, 79, 80, something like that. And those days are going to happen, right? Because you're talking about a range of outcomes. You know, some are going to be towards your very best and some are going to be towards your very worst. And with the bulk of them being right in the middle, right? That's, you know, how standard deviations work. But with that said, yeah, it can be really challenging. And I think it's important to just remember that, like, any given day is just one of those data points on that scale. And so you could hopefully say, Josh, that the next time you play, statistically, you know, if it's truly the worst you played in a few years, then the next round should be much better, right? Just regression to the mean wise. But it's definitely challenging. Let me see what else is going on in the chat. How many dogs? We have two dogs. Bigger grip feels better, but not too big. Yeah, I'm not sure I would go to like the Jumbo Max, like a Bryson grip just yet, but I'm certainly interested in trying something even bigger. Ever tried disc golf? I've tried it once. It was fun. Played with some friends. What kind of motorcycle did I used to ride? I rode an what's it called? GSXR 750. The Gixxer, which was a 750cc engine on a 600 frame. It was very fast and very fun. But when you crash it into the ground at high speed, your body generally is not going to be happy with the results. Oh, that was thin. And that's why I've had bones, you know, end up in multiple pieces. And besides that, and now, you know, being married and having a dogs and stuff to take care of, it doesn't feel like the right risk profile. But I do miss it sometimes. That was hit good. Yeah, I always like the sport bikes. Although I have rented Harleys a couple times, you know, out on trips with buddies, and that was pretty fun. You know, like a cruiser style Harley. Yeah, exactly, Ritwick. Prod. Yeah, I'm just catching up here. Prod, don't worry. Do you play from the tips every time you play? No, not always. And to your point about like scratch from whatever tee, I mean, your handicap is adjusted based on the tees you play, right? That's how differentials work. So, you know, like if you shoot 65 from the red tees, that might be a 0 differential. But that's still, you know, how handicaps work. But no, I mean, if I played with some older guys the other day, and they were playing from not the back tees, and so I played a little forward with them, and I shot probably the same score I would have shot otherwise. So it was a worse differential, right? It probably would make my handicap go up if it was going to count. But it's good practice to play from different sets of tees, right? You know, you can play the same golf course. I played Pinehurst number 2 from the U.S. Open tees, right, which is like 7,900 yards. And I've gone back and played the same golf course at Pinehurst from the like the forward tees, the white tees, right, with, you know, people in my family. And it's a completely different golf course, totally different challenge. You know, the clubs you're hitting into the greens are totally different. And those courses, right, it's the same golf course, but they're rated probably 12 strokes differently because of the length. So yes, that's how handicaps work. And I do think there's value in testing yourself both ways, right? Because you could show up to I've played tournament golf courses that are 7,400 yards, and I played tournaments at 6,100 yard golf courses. They require different skill sets. So I think it's a good idea to practice from a variety of distances. Yeah, so hopefully that addressed your comments, Prod. Michigan Man. Do you use a Motivo mat? No, this isn't a very good setup. This is just some 3/4 inch like gym tiles and like a Dick's Sporting Goods Max Fly hitting mat on top of it. Given this is still a somewhat temporary setup, but I'm optimistic that, you know, at some point in the near future we'll be able to kind of upgrade that stuff. Solology said, I recently purchased a pressure mat to go on with my Trackman. It's made a world of difference in how I practice sequence. What's your drills you use for sequence? Good question, Solo. One of my favorites is, without even hitting balls, what I struggle with the most in my sequencing is getting really quick from the top. So I'll get to the top and then just be like, oh, it's time to swing, and rip the handle down. So for me, working on sequence, what I need to feel is like a much slower transition. So one drill that I do for that is, you know, what they call freezers. So you take them full backswing and you almost double pump, right? You just kind of stop at the top, hold it there for a second, and then go. And that helps me really feel like I'm leading with my lower body and clearing. And then even without a club or hitting balls, one of my favorite drills is just practicing the movement from here to here, right? And just feeling that weight shift, you know, from the inside, like kind of big toe, inside front part of my left foot into the rear part of my back left heel, right? And you can practice just that move without a ball, without a club. And that, to me, that helps me really feel like I'm sequencing everything properly without just trying to be like, oh, we're here and now we're stuck because, you know, the lower body didn't start moving first. So based on, you know, I've known obviously my own golf swing really well over the years. Those are the things that I need to work on. So hopefully that's helpful, Soul G. Ritwick said, you like racing style motorcycles. I'm more into cruiser style. Yeah, it's, you know, another, like golf, you know, there's totally different perspectives and approaches. Gray Dave, Danny G is an amazing player. He was correcting his own swing today. Please check him out. To see it is to believe it. Drop a link in the chat if you can. Danny G is not a name that I know offhand. Solo G, appreciate it. I literally had to feel like I was shifting while the club was still going back. It was wild. Yeah, it is. The feel versus real thing is crazy. Like, I'll make swings and I'll watch them on video. And to me, like in real time, it feels like the club is like completely stopped moving. Like I'm like fully pausing, you know, Hideki style, right? And then you watch it back on video and it definitely looks smooth, but it's not, there's no stopping of the club, right? And these things are all, you know, the whole swing happens in like a second, right? So, yeah, it's really interesting to, I'm sure the pressure mat is super cool to just see how your body's moving. That's something that I've had to, you know, do some of those sequencing drills a lot over the years. So for me, I'm trying to feel almost like the club is like halfway down before I do anything, you know, in terms of like throwing it or releasing it. And trying to really feel like I'm getting my lower body out of the way. It can be good to do it even, you know, at a slower speed. Oh, man, allergies are killing me this time of year. Bryson talks about putting force in the handle at the right time, which is what I think you are referring to. Yeah, I think that's exactly right, Solology. And I love his drill that you guys have probably seen on YouTube, where he takes it to the top, drops it in his right hip pocket, and then will hit, right? And the idea being, you have to lower the handle in order to hit down on it and move the low point in front of the ball. And I think that is a great drill. It just for me can feel a little bit stuck behind me, which isn't my favorite feel, but that is exactly what I'm talking about, right? Not applying the force right from here, because if you think about it like a pendulum, right? Or I love thinking about like one of those pirate ship rides from the amusement park, right? That goes up and then it kind of sits there for a second and then comes back down is really fast at the bottom, which is what we're looking for, right? So if you had a club do that and then you just ripped it down, well, it's not gonna have that nice smooth movement that you want, right? You want to send it up, let it kind of hang, and then you throw it down, right? So it's not right from here, it's on the way down already to really efficiently, move the energy into the ball. So yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to feel. Hopefully that helps, Solology. Yeah, these are all, the things that feel like breakthroughs once you start to understand them. See, like that for me, it feels like I'm I'm almost not even gonna hit it, right? Because it feels like I'm just applying the force so late. But the strike and even my perception of the speed is just so much better. I don't have to tilt, right? Everything's just kind of sequenced because my body already has had time to move out of the way. Excuse me. Oh. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Solology, another thing too, if you're interested in these kind of like higher level, moves and feels, one that's helped me tremendously is feeling like my grip pressure is at like 40% of max. Because I struggle with, especially under pressure, right? You really start squeezing the hell out of it. And I found that my ball striking is so much more consistent when I'm like consciously, it makes it a lot harder to get steep because without a ton of force on the handle, right, gravity is going to want to pull the heavier club head down. So as long as you're not, really squeezing it to send the handle back this way, I think that's helped a lot too. Hey, look who we got. You guys come to help us practice? Who's that? Yeah. Oh, careful. Come on. Careful. Yeah. Good job. Good helping. Oh, don't be sorry. Colton said hi. Hey, Colton. JR Dub said, everything you're saying is true. Unfortunately paid $500 to learn this, but definitely helped my game improve, LMAO. Yeah, I believe it. Jack Hadley said hi. Hey, Jack. Mucky 2 shoes. I was off 2 on the big Spanish courses. Now I'm 51, beginning to fall apart slowly. Well, I think, I imagine at 51, you got to spend time on, different parts of your game, right? Maybe it's more mobility or speed training type stuff than when you were younger. But if you've played off too, then certainly you know how to get the ball around and get it in the hole. So, it might just be a different area of focus required on your game. Will said, how do I fix my over-the-top swing? I'm sick of shooting 92s and 90s. Good question. So I find a couple things, and this was always, my swing fault, right, is getting steep and kind of over the top. And, when we say over the top, right, we're talking about, a plane that is, inside, and then you're coming back this way, right, and hitting across the ball, right? You can imagine if you were playing tennis or table tennis, and you wanted to hit like a really high, like a high spin cut shot, right? You would kind of hit it like that, across and down. That's the same move that you're making when you swing over the top, right? So you're adding a lot of spin, you're hitting like a high spinny shot to the right, not what you're looking for most of the time in a golf swing. So to fix that, the number one thing I would say, and I'm stealing this or borrowing it from John Sherman, is fight fire with fire, right? So if your move is inside early and then steep to get back to the ball, practice some like Jim Furyk-like swings, right? Go out, learn how to hit some big hooks, and feel like you're swinging in like a loop, like really, outside and then underneath, right? And hitting it, swinging out to the right, and learn how to hit like a big high draw. One way you can do that is when you're standing on the range, line up like, if I'm going to use a baseball analogy, right? Like you're square, you're going to hit it to center field, right? But then what you're going to do, you're going to say, okay, I'm set up to hit it to center. I'm actually going to hit it down the left field line, right? And that's going to force your body to learn how to overcome, your current swing tendency to achieve hitting the ball, somewhere to the left of your target, right? So something like, here and then like way to the left, right? And learn how to hit a hook and fight fire with fire, right? So, make some of those big exaggerated out to, underneath swings. And then once you go and just, make your quote unquote normal swing, hopefully you're somewhere more dialed on, better on plane kind of swing. So that's where I might start. Dominic asked, do you grip with your fingers or palm with your front hand? Mostly fingers, I would say. I think most of my grip is in the fingers, all of it, right? So my lead hand is somewhat strong. Maybe this is helpful, right? And then the club kind of sits in my fingers like this, and then my right hand just kind of sits on top, right? So I'm, 80-90% of the strength in the grip is in my left hand, right? I want a nice, strong, hitting grip, right? If I was going to swing just left-handed and I had to hit this ball, firmly in that direction, right? I want a nice, strong grip here. If I'm underneath it, right, this would be like a really weak grip, right? You're not going to be able, imagine trying to hit this ball with just your left hand, right? I mean, there's no power, no strength here. So work with how your body is designed. And that's what it looks like for me, right? So kind of, still in the fingers here with the left hand. I've switched to the overlap grip, right? I used to interlock my fingers. Now I've moved to just this overlap. So yeah, hopefully that helps. It's mostly in the fingers. Strength in the wrist and loss of spine angle. Yeah, I hear you, Mucky. I feel like that could, maybe some mobility work could help, right? Some physical therapy on, strengthening the back and some mobility. That, I wasn't able to really work on my swing, get it to its current state until I did a ton of work on the left side of my body. I had a bad hip and ankle. So, trying to work on some of that stuff could help. Sorry, guys, trying to catch up here. Trackaholic said, how can I break 80? The math says fewer double bogeys. So you got to really limit those blow-up holes, which means no three putts and no hitting it into hazards off the tee, right? No penalty shots, no three putts. Those are kind of your baseline rules for breaking 80. No doubles. Bogeys are fine, right? If you hit a ball in the trees and you have to chip out and then you hit it on the green and two putt for a bogey, that's a great outcome. So again, managing your expectations. I recommend John Sherman's 4 Foundations book. Lim Han said, I'm happy when I break 100. Yeah, it's just good to get out there, right? Hi, I'm Korean. Hello, welcome from Korea. Adventure Brothers is in here. Welcome, Adventure Brothers. LA Awesome, what if my driver goes 500 every time and I can't get it to go less? That's an awesome problem to have. I actually have no advice for what you would do there. Maybe try, only hitting like a 300-yard pitching wedge. That could work. Hey, Garrett Clemens is back in the chat. Got fitted for Mizuno Forge 925s with dynamic gold 120, but can't order them because they don't have the shafts. SMFH. Oh, that's so disappointing. I feel your pain. I've been there, trying to, you go get fit for something, and then they're like, oh, yeah, we can order it for you in like 8 to 10 weeks, because it's back ordered. I'm just like, I don't think I can wait that long. If you guys have questions or, more golf tip stuff, drop them in the chat. Love to, share my knowledge. Pretty cool, too. I just was able to partner up with Skillest, which is an online coaching app, and I'm going to be offering, lessons if you're really serious about your game and you're like, hey, this teaching style resonates with me. I actually want to get better at golf. I'd love to see you guys over there and work together. But let's catch up on the chat here. Never thought of it like that. I was a baseball player, so that analogy helps. Awesome. Jack said, how do I go about getting my iron shots higher? Everything is either top sliced or just stingers. So if you're working still on, what you're talking about, is like ground contact, right? If you're thinning some or, hitting behind it sometimes or slicing it, what I love to see beginners do is go much slower, right? So I have an 8-iron in my hand, and for, what I'm going to suggest is grab me like an 8 or a 9-iron and try to hit it 50 yards on the range, right? But what you're really going to work on is feeling that nice compression. You're going to make like a half swing, truly, like to your waist. And you're just going to train yourself to have that nice square club face and to feel that compression, right? What does it feel like when I deliver the club into the ball, the way you want to deliver a good strike, which is with the shaft leaning forward, right? My club face square, and, with some amount of descending angle into the ball. And you can just practice making, perfect contact on like little half swings like that. It's a good drill even for me, right? Just to practice, like, what does that feel like to, at a pretty slow speed, just make a nice perfect strike on the ball. And then from there, you start adding some more speed to it. But if you're just getting started, don't worry about like all these big long swings you see on TV. Learn how to properly strike the ball, at a slower speed. And then you start building up to it. So hopefully that helps. Mucky 2 Shoes. I've turned my attention to my golf ball collection. 500 golf balls from ping to rare Nike balls, putting up the display cabinets. That's very cool. Maxton asks, can you try and imitate Bryson DeChambeau's swing? I definitely can. Let's do that. Let's do that right now. The only problem is I have like a regulation length 8-iron, and his is supposed to be, they're all the same length. But here nor there. Let's see. So if I was Bryson, nice wide stance, hands are kind of out. I'm going to hit it really hard. So I got to, really push into the ground. And then he really kind of whips it through, right, with not a lot of, he hits big draws, right? So we're going to really, not a lot of hand action. He's got the giant grips. So we're just kind of covering it. Very little hand action. Here we go. Actually hit that pretty good. That Bryson guy, he might have a decent swing. Great shout, Maxon. Z says, I started playing golf a week ago, sometimes missing ball completely. Can you show me basic driver form? Yeah, great question. So let's try to make a little room here. If you're missing the ball completely, the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is definitely slow down your swing, right? So again, most of these things that we're, when you're working on technique, I don't know if that'll even stay there. When we're working on technique, this is true in a lot of disciplines, right? Whether it's playing guitar, music, musical instruments. One of our OG chatters, is a professional drummer, Cyberslade, and he was in here saying this is exactly the same as drumming, right? You just got to slow down, learn the technique. So if you're missing the ball completely, I would definitely recommend slowing down, right? And just making some slow, not even full backswings, right? But just, wow, that's incredibly high. That's like a Kyle Berkshire tee right there, guys. I would miss the ball entirely. There are some rubber tees around here somewhere maybe, but we'll have to work on that. Yeah, you're just going to want to go really slow, right? And with driver, everything is, the golf swing is just an arc around our body, right? So the driver swing is the longest. So that clubs, you're going to want to keep it kind of outside your hands, and you want to feel width, right? Like imagine someone was pulling this club head away from me, right? That's how I'm going to try and put energy into it in order to, deliver that energy into the golf ball and hit it, right? But if you're missing the ball, what you got to work on is just really slowing down, and just practice hitting some balls like that at a slow speed. Mucky Tushu says, I'm John Daly, size but much taller. Awesome. Chris Moore said, hey Chris. How do you hit your irons for Knight Rider? Help me understand your question. Where does your left thumb go in your grip? Chaldo Eamon. Sorry, I'm a little slow here. Oh, Cyberslade is in here. Unbelievable. Sorry, I just had to scroll down on the chat. Wow, that's very funny. So left thumb for me is like somewhere on the, on the other side of the grip, right? And kind of pushing into the backside almost. And that's really what I'm feeling, controlling the club face, right? So it's somewhere in there. Hopefully you can see that. Hey, thanks for being here, Mucky Two Shoes. Maxon asks, how to practice without a net and when it's raining? Great question, Maxon. So what I like to do, and what I'll do a lot of, especially, in the wintertime, we have bad winters here, so, I'll just set up, like I'm talking to you guys, right? Set up my camera on a tripod, and I'll just grab a club, and you can do this like in your bedroom, or, your garage, a place you can swing, and just go in slow motion. And for me, this winter was my posture, right? That was something that I noticed was getting really kind of sloppy. And so what I did was I set up my camera, and I stood in my bedroom, sometimes without even a club, right? And I would just practice getting into the ball and then exaggerating the feels, which for me, I used to get kind of lazy and like hunched over like this, right? So trying to feel like, I'm athletic and nice and, standing tall with my chest, right? That's what I had to work on. It could be different for you, right? At different points, I've, just stood there and on camera just practiced like, having a takeaway where the club head stays, somewhere outside my hands, right? My tendency used to be to get like this. So you can practice inside just with your camera setup without hitting balls or without, needing a net. Christopherson said, have you any experience with Maltby clubs? Just started 2 months ago with a free senior set, but they feel like they're holding me back. I don't have any experience with those clubs, but I do recommend getting fitted. Robert says, brand new to golf, my right thumb skin rubs and hurts after 50 balls on the 3-wood. Any advice? I think, yeah, gloves can definitely help, or, that's something that will improve over time, right? The more reps you get. Limhan, wear a glove, yep. Cyberslade, nice to see you. How do I get more consistent in my longer irons? 7, 8, 9, no issue, just 6 and below. Good question. So I think the longer the club gets, the more difficult it gets, it becomes to make good swings if your swing is steep, right? With a shorter iron, you can get pretty steep and get away with it, but if you're hitting like a 6.5, 4 iron and you're, kind of coming in steep, it's going to get more difficult. So that's the first thing that comes to mind, but without, seeing you swing, it's a little tougher. I'm doing great, Cyberslade. It's, a sunny day here finally, hanging out on the stream. Hopefully that answered your question, Z. Sorry, I'm still trying to catch up on the chat here, which is awesome. Thank you guys for all the great questions. Whisper Pikachu. Any tips for how to stop topping balls and not get poor contact when I do actually hit it some? Yeah, same thing I was just mentioning. I would say if you really are, struggling with missing the ball or hitting it like way off the toe, right, or, in the hosel, my best advice is just, kind of slow it down, right? If you're making these, really big swings and full speed, trying to hit it, and you're just not getting the results you want, you got to break it down to like the most basic level to get that part to where you want it. So if you're, truly topping a lot of balls, right, I'd maybe start even with like less than a half swing, right? Just some, just get that feeling of over and over and over again. That was heavy, right? So you got to pay attention, but just learn how to deliver a nice clean strike in the center of the club face. And then once you can do that, 10 times in a row, say, okay, I've got it there. A little more speed, right? And, you'll have some setbacks, right? It'll be a little more difficult than at the slower speed. But that's how you build it up. And you just learn how to deliver the club in the appropriate way. And you're off and running. Hopefully that helps, Pikachu. Jack Hadley, how do I get more distance on my clubs? Last year I was hitting like 320 drives. Now I'm struggling to get 230. Same distance drop on most of my longer clubs. Not sure why, though. Well, there's really only a couple possibilities, right? One is you're swinging swinging slower, which is possible, but I would say that's a pretty big drop, right? Like, 100 yards in driver distance almost, which makes me think like maybe you change something in your swing and you really, went from like a pretty optimal, like high launch, low spin type impact position to, maybe it's more descending and spinnier. Maybe you're hitting the club face, the center of the face less often. That's the first thing that comes to mind. But yeah, it's really, the distance question is only about, club head speed and impact conditions, right? Did you hit the center of the face and what are the launch and spin numbers like? Sorry about the allergies. I'm really, really struggling here. Terry says, I have a 36-hole tournament in one day coming up. My handicap's the third highest in the tournament. I'm wondering how you would approach playing 36 in one day. Walk all 36. Do you usually walk your rounds, Terry? Because if you don't walk, I would suggest not going from riding all of your rounds to walking 36 in a day, especially if you're going to carry. But if you do walk regularly, I prefer walking. I think I play better golf that way, just from a rhythm perspective. But I would say, stick with you coming into a tournament, right? You want to change as little as possible. You want it to feel like just another round, just another day. You're going to hit the same golf shots you're used to hitting. That's where having a solid routine and pre-shot, approach is super helpful, right? You want everything to. I listened to this interview with an NFL kicker, and they were asking him, like, how do you deal with the pressure, right? You know, you have one chance, you get out there at the end of the game, and it's, you know, the whole team, the outcome, the game is riding on you, right? You know, what do we do to like mitigate that? And they all talked about, like, just go back to routine, right? You know, I do the same thing. I take the same amount of steps. The same number of looks. My timing is down to the second, right? Everything is identical. And you want to make it just feel routine, right? They're just stepping in. You're just kicking it through the uprights. So that's something that I'm going to try to work on more, for tournament golf stuff this year. So hopefully that helps, Terry. In drumming, we do 1 minute intervals. That's very interesting. You've been doing a lot of drumming practice, Cyberslid? I would imagine, what muscle? That's like a ton of like forearm muscles, I would imagine, right? You know, shoulders. I mean, I imagine like your upper body, you know, probably your traps maybe, gets a pretty good workout from all that drumming. For me, when I do a lot of speed training in golf and I'm really swinging hard, I feel it in my glutes and my hamstrings, and interestingly, like in my right shoulder, right, which I think is a lot of just like the external rotation from, you know, really trying to generate speed, you know, in the backswing. But yeah, it's just always so interesting how, you know, these different things. Then bring it up. Yeah, exactly. Terry says, I usually walk, so this is all very useful. Yeah, I'm glad that helps. Legs as well. I play double pedals. Very cool. Main 0606 said, how far can you hit your putter? My record is 220 meters. That is a very far putter hit. I've never tried. I think I like all my putters too much to risk like a full swing and having, you know, the head come flying off. Just that little extra sequencing move feels so good right now, right, guys? It's just a little extra pause. That 1, 2, boom, at the bottom. Amazing, guys. 23 likes on the stream already. I think it's going to happen. I think we're going to hit at 1K live on the stream. Somewhere in the 990s we're at. Just 4 months into our YouTube journey. That is crazy. So crazy. I'm very grateful for all the support. Honestly, like, you know, I've said this before on the stream, so it's redundant for some of the OG listeners, but like the first time I went to do this, I was so intimidated, right? You know, I kind of have social anxiety and I don't love, you know, performing or talking to people or like giving speeches or whatever. But the fact that everybody is so, you know, 99% of people are extremely cool and just, you know, ask good questions or like hanging out, makes it so much easier. So thank you guys for, you know, helping me get better at this and have motivation to keep doing it. So yeah, it's great. Johnny Duca says, American History X or Fight Club? Gotta go Fight Club, right? Gotta go Fight Club. I mean, I won't spoil it if you've never seen the film, but, you know, all time, like, mind-blowing, like, twist at the end. Shout out to Cyberslade trying to rally the troops. Love that. Thanks, Max. I love the support. Be like Max. Be like Cyberslade. Drop a comment on the shorts. Drop a like on the stream. We've got a few signups already on the for the online coaching. So super grateful, you know, for people to like truly say, you know, I like watching this guy on YouTube, so then I'm gonna give him money to try and help me get better at golf. I mean, that is unbelievably exciting, and I'm just really humbled, you know, that somebody would like be willing to, you know, give me a shot, right, to try and help them. So I'm hopeful to try, you know, as we keep growing the platform, to do more of that stuff. And it's something I really do enjoy. It's very gratifying, right, to see like, you know, oh, your swing used to look like this, and then I shared some knowledge with you, and then it looks different and better, and you know, the joy that can bring people. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? Maxon asks, can you put a QR code? You shouldn't trust QR codes, number one. Not to be like a conspiracy guy, but you just got to be really careful with your data. Let me try to do this. Let me see if I can drop it in the description. Oh, that's the chat. Sorry, guys. Thanks for bearing with me. Hey, CJF is back. Proud of you too, my guy. Thanks for jumping in and being here. Sorry, I'm trying to add this to the description for Maxton. I think I dropped it in the chat by accident. Sorry, guys. I wish I was better at this. Oh, here we go. Let me try this really quick. All right. Hopefully that link in the description works. Now let me catch up on the chat really quick. Thank you guys for bearing with me. The technology side of this stuff is something we're still working on getting better at. Let me catch up. If you're overdrawing the ball on your irons, what's a good way to play a cut? Good question, D-Boy. I was just mentioning earlier, I love the idea of fighting fire with fire, right? So if you're hitting a big draw, you know, you're probably swinging out to the right, you know, a bit too much with a closed club face, right? And that's causing this big, you know, overturning type shot. The next time you're on the range, right? I was sharing the opposite advice for someone slicing, right? But aim like set up like you're going to hit a ball to center field, right? Like a nice straight shot. And then you're going to force yourself to try and hit one down the right field line, right? Try and hit a cut shot, right? So you're going to have to, you know, really hold that face off, you know, maybe shift the path, right? You know, from out to, you know, more neutral. So that's where I would start, right? This idea of fighting fire with fire. Alfie says, new to golf, when driving, people tell me to drop my right shoulder almost like a tilt. Is this correct? And if so, can you show what it means? Yes, absolutely. So I think what the advice you're getting is when you're set up to the driver, right? Well, we want to deliver an upward angle of attack with driver that's different than all the other clubs. You know, swing driver is fundamentally different. So one way to do that is to, you know, preset your shoulders, right? So if you tip your right shoulder down, you know, I've seen the tip of like right before, you know, grab your right hand and touch your right knee, right? To kind of exaggerate this like tilt, right? To try and promote, you know, an upward shot. But that's something that you know, I would suggest incorporating, you know, once you've at a slower speed, like learned how to, you know, consistently deliver the club face, you know, hit the center of the face. Does anyone know why? Oh, sorry, I missed Dwyer's question. How to stop head and body sway and takeaway and backswing? I'm a 7.8 handicap. Okay. So if you're swaying, right, you know, your head is moving back, you know, off the ball, I would, again, try to exaggerate the opposite, right? So when you're practicing, and you can do this without hitting a ball, you can do it at a really slow speed, like you hear me, you know, preach over and over again. And if you're, you know, in your normal swing, if you're trying to stay centered, but you see on video that you're actually, you know, really swaying and coming back, well, try to feel the opposite, right? It's going to feel like you're moving forward. But I bet when you check on video, that feeling like you're moving forward is probably just staying centered, right? I used to do that too. My swing used to be really kind of like back off the ball and then try to time it up. Whereas now I try to feel like my head stays right on the back of the ball throughout the whole swing pretty much, right? Just nice and centered. But when I was working on that, I had to feel as if I was like almost moving into the, towards the target. I wasn't, right? That's the feel versus real that we talk about. And so you just try and feel the opposite of what you're doing until, you've kind of narrowed it back to center. Toby says, anyone know when I swing, my club face turns right? Do you mean like the face is open at impact? Or when you hit, the face is opening? Because if it's the latter, I would guess that it's because you're striking the heel, right? And the counter reaction is the club, would go this way. If you hit the toe, it's going to shut more. But if it's opening into impact, that could just be, some manipulation that you're doing. CJ, Kelly said hi. Hey, Kelly. The craziest thing in your bag is your 2-iron. Where do you find one? Great question. I think these are still out there. This is, eBay or Golf Works WRX, Golf WRX are great resources. This is a really old, the first generation Tour Preferred UDI from TaylorMade with a graphite shaft in it. I do think the 7-wood might end up, being a better option overall than this club most of the time. But I agree with CJF. It absolutely, you can hit some really cool shots. I love hitting this stinger. So yeah, I would check eBay. That's always a good place to look if you're looking for a 2-iron. Oh, don't worry at all, Maxon. This is really just, I want to make sure that people are aware and just to talk a little bit about, offering some coaching. But absolutely, we're going to keep doing the live streams. We're going to keep sharing the info. Kelly says, thanks for the tips. Thanks, Kelly. Yeah, listen to, I think Cyberslade knows this stuff, so. Glad that makes sense. Yeah, awesome, Dwyer. Big Brain says, I keep chunking my irons and wedges. I think it's my head, but I don't know. Please help. All right, Big Brain. So let's first diagnose, right? If you're hitting it heavy, right? That means you're hitting the ground, the turf before the ball, right? So the low point of your swing is behind the ball, and what you need to do is shift that. You want your low point in front of the ball, right? If we're swinging a club and we want some amount of forward shaft angle, right, into impact. And then we tilt the arc right down so that the low point is in front of the ball. That's how, because, the ball sits on a flat, on the ground, right? It's on the earth, right? Well, if you hit it, with no shaft angle, you're going to hit the bottom of the club, not have a good result. If you tilt the shaft forward, right, that's how you hit the ball with the right part of the club. So to do that, right, you got to practice, really feeling like you're moving the low point of your swing in front of the ball. And I would suggest, you're going to hear me say this a lot, guys, but slow it down. Grab if it's a wedge specifically that you're struggling with, grab a wedge and make little half swings, right? One thing that, could help to focus on is trying to feel like you're maybe more 65% of your weight on your front foot with these shorter clubs, right? You don't need a whole lot of weight shift. You're not trying to hit it far with a wedge. You're trying to hit it, a consistent distance and on your target line. And just make some small swings where you're really clipping the back of the ball. You don't want to be, especially with a wedge, right? You don't need to help it up. Don't lean back on it. That could cause you to hit it heavy. Or if you're, really coming off the ball and then trying to time it up, you could be interacting with the ground too soon. But really slow it down, make some half swings. Try to hear and feel that nice compression. The ball's coming out of the center of the club. That's really what you're looking for. Drew says, what KBS shafts are you using? These are the C-Taper 125 S Plus shafts. I've been using these for a long time. I had these in the set of blades that I had before switching to the Tacoma irons this year. So these are, C-Taper 125 grams. Ragin Cajun USA says, what do I do about pushing my irons right off a tee on par threes? Great question. Is it just off the tee or is it also off of the fairway? That would be one follow-up question I might have. But generally, if you're hitting a push, right, let's understand what's happening. If the ball is starting to the right of your intended target and it's not curving a whole lot, right, it's not, drawing back a bunch or continuing to fade, what that tells us is that your club face is coming into impact very square to the path, right? The ball is not curving much, but the path is too far out to the right of your intended target, right? So if this is my intended target line, right, your path is somewhere, from the inside to the outside, but the face is square, right? So from that position, if you wanted to hit a draw, you would have the face a little bit more shut. And I would not recommend trying to hit like push cuts, but, because they're not going to go anywhere, but the face would then need to be open. So that's the diagnosis of what's causing the push. And then how do you correct that, right? I would certainly suggest trying to maintain the, pretty square club face to path that you've already developed. But you're going to want to shift that path to a more neutral, down your target line type position. And there's a bunch of ways you could do that, right? You're going to want to feel, again, just, like you're swinging more to the left, right? As opposed to out to the right across your target line. So hopefully that helps with the push question. Did Alfie just say it happened? Did we just hit 1K live on the stream? Let's do a quick refresh. That could be pretty cool. Yeah, look at that, guys. 1K. 1K. Very cool. Thank you guys for being here to see that moment. That was very cool for me. Just 4 months in. Already hitting 1,000 subscribers. I mean, blowing my mind. Thank you guys. Seriously. Thank you. What is the stance for a 2-iron? Pretty much the same. If I'm going to hit a stinger, like if you really want to hit a low one, I'll open up the stance a bit. Right? So, if a normal stance is for me pretty square to my intended target line, I might shift it a little bit to the left. And that's just to, because I'm not going to be making a full, kind of follow through, and it just makes it easier to move the ball back in your stance and hit down on it without having to manipulate too much else, right, to allow the ball to still come out on your target line. So my stinger, setup is a little bit more open, maybe like this with the ball back, right? And you're just going to kind of let the club fall on the back of the ball. That was pretty nice, guys. That was a solid stinger strike. So something like that. Matthew Liddell says, too much hooker draw and driver. How do I straighten it out? Great question. So same idea. If you're overdrawing it, right, that means the face is too closed and your path is probably too far out to the right. So the easiest way to start working on fixing that, in my opinion, would be get on the range and not at 100% speed, right? Maybe grab your driver and make some 80% swings and feel like you're hitting big cuts, right? And just teach yourself to be like, well, what do I have to do, right? I have to shift my path to the left and I have to have the face more open than I currently have, right? And then from there, you start to dial in a straighter shot, but teach yourself the skills necessary. Number one, club face control and club path control, right? And give yourself the skills to, have an awareness of the club face such that you're like, if I want to hit a draw, it needs to be a little more shut. If I want to hit a fade, it needs to be more open. And try to, then you dial in the straight shot from there, but teach yourself both, and what do you have to do to hit that cut shot? It's going to feel very different than when you're hitting the big hook. Thank you guys very much for all the support. All these congratulations. Impossible only means I'm possible. I love that. Started playing golf 3 years ago. Yeah, CJ knows his stuff. Do you always grip the club the same way with all iron shots? I notice this can significantly affect how much I draw or fade a ball. Can you show how you grip it? Yeah, of course, Drew. I don't like changing how I grip the club because in my idea of a good golf swing, right, I don't want to feel like the club face is rotating, like opening or closing much at all, right? Like I try to feel like it's kind of just locked in and it's square when I set it up. I make the swing. I mean, of course, there is some amount of rotation in the club face, but I don't want to feel like a David Duval type move, right, where he like really lets it fly open on the way back and then rips it across, right, and really there's a lot of rotation in the club face. I try to feel like my grip is pretty consistent, right? So here we can maybe stand like this, and I would say I have on the stronger side of a grip, but at higher speed I found that to be pretty necessary. And then my right hand is pretty loosely just sitting on top, something like this. And you'll notice too, right? It's mostly in my fingers here, right? I'm not gripping it in the palm, right? It's mostly, I'm just kind of holding it gently in my fingers. That's awesome, Raging Cajun. Yeah, I think this is, a step in the journey that I'm on, right? And we're all at different periods or moments of that. I've had times when, like now, I'm super committed and invested in improving my game and trying to get better. And other times where, I have less time to practice and I kind of take what I can get. But yeah, proud of you for, trying to take it seriously and make the investment in your game. That's why I think golf is so addicting, right? It's, we've all hit a perfect shot. You've hit a perfect drive or hit a great wedge shot to 5 feet. We maybe don't do it as often as we'd like, but it's right there. It's attainable. It's just how can we do it more consistently? How can we do it at a slightly incrementally fractions of degrees better way, right? And I've never grown tired of that the process, right? The journey of like, well, what's the next thing to try and get better? And I'll share too, you guys have heard me say on the stream before, but more helpers. More helpers. Hi. Did you miss your dad while he's doing his practice? Did you miss your dad? Yeah. Hi. Being silly? Hi. Yeah, I'll be in soon. I'll be in soon.
You don't want to know what's there.
Let me catch up here. FGC Ribcage says, how do you compress the ball with irons or a drill to compress them? Great question. Compression, is super important for, hitting good golf shots. And what do we mean, right? Let's back up a second. When we talk about compression, right? That means that we're delivering the club into the ball on a descending angle. We're hitting the ball into the turf, right? That's what causes it to fly into the air. And the shaft is leaning forward, right? So those are the conditions that we need to replicate. And your question is, how do we do that? How do we do that more consistently? How do we do it more often? And I'm going to go back to what you keep hearing me say a bunch, but just really break it down, make it smaller and slower, right? So instead of trying to work on your compression, in a full swing at 100% speed, start with like a half swing at 60% speed, right? And if you practice, I like to preset my impact sometimes and do this drill where I'm, making sure that I'm, delivering the club with the handle forward and then make some small swings from there. That's a really good one that I like. And, you know, even without the preset, right, you can just make some small swings and really focus on that, you know, downward angle, keeping the club, you know, the handle in front when you're impacting it, right? And that's how you'd work on compression. So hopefully that helps. That's my advice on that one. CJ, practice over time will make you better. Keep grinding. Yeah, awesome. I agree. CJ asked, how's that 7-wood, the QI35? It's awesome. I've only got it out on the golf course once, but it was truly like point and shoot, right? Aim it at the center of the fairway, make a half-decent swing, and I was just hitting these really high, tight, you know, either draws or hit a couple draws and one that was a fade. And I was really impressed. I think, you know, it's just the amount of loft makes it hard to do, you know, if you hit it anywhere near the center of the face, it's going to go straight. So I've been really impressed with the 7-wood. Although, like I said, unfortunately, it probably will kick out the 2-iron. So, so not as many stinger shots out there potentially, but it'll depend on the course setup and the layout and the conditions, right? You know, all things equal, I'd probably pick the 2-iron on a very windy day over the 7-wood. Drew says, thanks, man. Yeah, of course, Drew. Alfie says, I keep hitting a hook. What's the top 3 tips to stop hooking a shot? Yeah, good question. So my first tip would be learn how to hit a fade, right? So if you're hitting these big hooks where you're, you know, really shutting the face and the path is from the inside out to the right, learn how to do the opposite, right? So, you know, open your stance. It's more outside, face is open, and teach yourself to control the club face so you can do both, right? That's the skill development piece. And then the functional piece is, you know, if you're still struggling, go slow, but, you know, aim as if you were going to try and hit a straight ball. And then what you're going to force yourself to do is hit it almost like you're hitting it out to right field, right? So without adjusting my swing or my stance, right? If my miss is a big hook, right? I'm going to force myself to hit it that way and you know, not hook it, right? So, right, what does that feel like? It's, you know, holding the face off more. The path is less to the right. So those are my best tips for fighting the hook. The fur babies have arrived. Yeah, they are always in need of attention. So anytime I'm not there to give them my undivided attention, they get fussy. How do I stop topping the ball on my irons? Good question, Christoforo. So what I would start with doing is just really slowing down your swing, right? So if you're topping it, that means you're hitting the ball, you know, your path and your low point is too far in front, right? You're swinging down on top of it, right? So you gotta slow it down. Instead of making, you know, like big long swings, trying to hit it full speed, just train yourself. So I have an 8-iron here, right? And I'm gonna make a swing like I was gonna hit it maybe 50 yards, right? And I'm just gonna teach myself to deliver, you know, a nice clean strike onto the back of the ball. And for you, what that's gonna feel like is the low point is less in front, right? One reason you could be topping it is if you get to the top of your swing and then you're sliding towards the target, right? That can cause your low point to move too far in front of the ball. So again, my best advice is really slow it down. Just practice delivering a nice clean strike at like half speed, right? You know, just truly a half swing. See how that goes for you. Struggling with a closed face at a dress grip issue. Any tips? From Dennis. Hey, Dennis, welcome to the stream. So what I think you probably need is a reference point, right? So if you know that your face is ending up too shut, right, pointed too far to the left for a right-handed player when you're addressing it, right, you got to teach yourself to be like, well, I know that it's too shut, but how can I, learn, right? You need like a straight edge, right? This is a piece of tape here. And you could use a ruler, you could use a square, any kind of tool that has a right angle, right? You really just want to teach yourself to say, well, now I can see when I set up to it closed, right, that it's pointed to the left of that straight edge. And so I need to rotate it more to the right, more open, in order to get it in line with that straight edge, right? And that's also a great way to teach yourself, like, what are the implications of the handle moving relative to the face, right? Generally speaking, like if we, don't do anything else and we push the handle forward, the face will open, and vice versa, right? So that's, important to understand as you, continue your golf journey, but that'd be my best place to start. Give yourself a nice straight edge to look down at, and then you'll just practice it, right? You'll go through your routine. You just, whether it's on the range or at the golf course, right? And you'll have that straight edge, and you'll just practice putting the club down and training yourself. Well, what does it feel like when I set it down and it's nice and square? What does that look like? So training your eyes and your body to say, well, I know what it used to be. It used to be really closed and pointed to the left, and now it feels different, and I'm doing something different to have it be more square to my target line. So hopefully that helps, Dennis. CJ asked, ever since your driver broke, I've been wondering, what did you get? Another Stealth or a different model of TaylorMade? Yeah. So I've been meaning to do a video about this, and I just have been busy with the personal life. But I got two different driver heads, a QI10 Max and a QI10 Core model. And I've already been fit into this Oban Kiyoshi purple shaft, years ago. I have the same one in my 3-wood, my 5-wood, not in the new 7-wood, but I didn't need it at this point. And I've been testing the two different heads, right, on the range and on the golf course. I played a couple different rounds with each of them. And the last piece that I still need to do is get some time on Trackman and really compare them head to head, right, with the same shaft on the same day, with similar type swings. So that's where we're at in the driver testing. I would love if Club Champion was like, hey, John, we got to get you in here and do a fitting. But I've been really busy and haven't been able to make time for that. But yeah, CJ, that's where we're at with the drivers. So far, I've been favoring the Max head just because it is truly like the most forgiving driver I've ever owned. Off the heel, off the toe, it really wants to go straight. So that's one I've been gravitating towards, but I just, it might still be too spinny. I have it lofted down from 9 to 7. So this is a 7-degree QI10 Max head. And I'm still a little worried that even the good ones, right? The center of the face strikes might be too spinny. Yeah, we're going to have to move back a little if we're going to hit drivers in here. But yeah, so don't have a definitive answer yet, but been testing a couple different TaylorMade heads. Cyberslay gassing us up. Let's go, guys. We just smashed through 1,000 subs on the stream, live. That was sick. Let's go 2,000 next, then 10,000, right? We're just continuing the grind. We're going to keep getting better. Very, very cool. Super grateful for all the support. Tyler McCluskey asks, tips on stopping a slice on my driver. I do have tips for that. So you guys have heard me say it before, but if you're hitting a slice, you got to learn how to hit a hook, right? Fight fire with fire. I'm borrowing this from John Sherman. I hope he doesn't mind. It's just such a brilliant, simple concept, right? If you're hitting a slice, you're coming into the ball with the face open. Let's understand what's happening, right? If you were playing tennis and you wanted to hit like a cut shot, or a drop shot with a ton of backspin on it, right? You kind of open your racket, or table tennis, right? And you cut across it, right? And with a downward strike. And that would add a lot of backspin and take a lot of speed off. And for a cut shot in table tennis, that's great, right? But not for a driver, where you want, a higher launch with not a lot of spin. So that's if we understand what's happening, that's the first piece. And then from there, what do we do about it, right? So the quickest way is learn how to hit a hook or a draw, right? And you're going to have to make a completely different move with your swing and with your club face to achieve that. So the quickest way that I found to trick yourself, like learn what that feels like, right, is if your normal slice, you set up square and the ball kind of comes out to the right with a lot of spin, take the same setup that's nice and square, right, with your driver, and I would go at maybe 70 or 80% speed, and you're just going to want to feel like you make your normal backswing, but instead of hitting it to center field like you're set up to do, you're going to try to hit it down the left field line, right? And you're going to just force yourself to hit it over there to the left. And what's going to happen, your brain is going to force yourself to swing the club with the face more shut, right, in order to achieve that condition. So you're kind of tricking yourself by, instead of setting up to my normal shot and producing the slice, force yourself to produce the hook, right? And you're building that skill of understanding where the club face is, where the path of the club needs to be, right? So if you're slicing it and your swing is across the ball to the left, right, like this, well, you know that in order to hit it straight, you need to neutralize that path, right? Get it closer to your target line. And, again, just by forcing yourself to hit those shots over to left field, you're going to train yourself, how is that path different? How is that motor pattern different than what I was doing to produce a strike? Hopefully that helps, Tyler. Cyberslade says, that's a nice driver. Yeah, CJ. Test. Test. Oh, look at us. Test. Oh, look at us. Test. Sorry about that, guys. I think, YouTube is still working on some of their infrastructure stuff for the live streaming, and, we got to roll with it. So I appreciate you guys being cool about the technical stuff. I'm still trying to get it figured out. Test is confirmed. That's what we like to hear. Hell yeah. Gotta remember to stay hydrated. You'd be surprised that this is more talking than I do probably in like a whole day. The feel of that, guys, it's that little gather moment, right? I'm just letting it, I send the club up and then it just kind of gathers for a second. It's that. And then there's just so much more speed at the bottom. I don't have to time it up, right? I just stay on top of the ball. It's even warmed up a little in here. Christopher says, please read last. Let me catch up really quick. Any tips for topping irons? Oh, yes. I'm glad you asked me to go back. Cyberslade says, you're awesome, bro. I appreciate that. Yeah, we are still trying to keep getting better at this. So if you're topping your irons, Cristoforo, what's happening, right, is the low point of your swing is too far in front of the ball, right? So your club is hitting the top part of the ball and not, really the back of it where we'd like to see you impacting it. So there could be a few reasons for that, right? One of which being if you're sliding this way into impact, right? Imagine the arc of your club is moving in front of the ball too much, right? So the best thing I would suggest is really make some slow, small half swings, right? You're not trying to hit the ball very far. All you're focused on is just delivering a nice, crisp strike on the back of the ball, right? And I think you'll find it becomes a lot harder to top the ball, right? If you're just making a little swing like this, you don't have all that time to get things out of whack, and you're going to want to focus on, well, how does that feel different than what I currently do, right? If my normal swing is I'm kind of really in here and I'm topping it, right? It's going to feel maybe like you're hanging back on it, but just make those small swings and deliver a nice crisp impact on it, and I think that'll help. And then you just start adding some speed from there. So hopefully that helps. Tristan says, whenever I get flight in contact, my irons, they're shooting right. I'm sure I'm coming over the top, but what's a good tip? Well, follow-up question. When you say they're shooting to the right, are they starting to the right, like you're pushing it? Or they're shooting to the right, like they fade a lot, right? Like there's a lot of spin, like left to right spin on them. Because those are two different things. Very heavy fade, Tristan says. So what's happening when you hit that big fade, right? Oh. The club face is pointed to the left of your target, right? And the path is across to the left, right? Something like this. So you can imagine, like, if you were playing tennis or table tennis and you wanted to hit a really, high spin, short shot, right? You'd kind of make a swing like this, right? Where you're cutting across it, down and to the left. And that's going to create that lot of, high spin, short to the right shot. So great for table tennis, not great for golf. My divots are always pointing left, exactly. So you're already partly there, right? You're self-diagnosing, like, hey, maybe this divot pointing to the left is part of this issue, right? And so there's two things we're going to need to work on, right? There's the club face control, not having it be so open, and the path, right? Shifting that less to the left, right? More, neutral down our target line. And Tristan, what I would suggest is teaching yourself, right? If your normal pattern is this kind of steep over the top swing out, to the left with the open face, right? Teach yourself, and you can do this really slow, right? With some small swings. Like, what would I have to do to hit a hook, right? To produce the opposite spin, right? You'd have to deliver the club more from the inside, right? Out to the right. And you'd have to have the face more closed relative to your path. So if you trained yourself to just hit some little draws, right? Some big draws with a small swing, you'll start to train yourself. You'll start to feel what's different, right? What did I have to do with my body, my wrists, my hands, to control the club face, right? To instead of hitting this spinny cut shot, right? Instead, deliver the club into the ball such that it spins the other way, right? And then from there, it's just about trying to dial it in. How do you produce the swing you want on any given shot? Sorry, the carbonation got me there. Hey, CJ, W's in the chat. Thank you very much, my guy. Hopefully that was helpful, Tristan. Again, I want you guys to try to, first you got to understand what's actually happening. How can I understand, recreate or diagnose what's producing the results I'm seeing? And then from there, what do I do about it, right? Because I could give you a bunch of drills and say, do these drills, and you'll stop slicing it. But if you don't actually understand what's causing it, then, if you see a slice come again, you're like, oh, well, I don't, I just have the drill. I don't have the actual knowledge, the understanding of, how do I create those conditions to produce a different ball flight? So that's kind of always been my approach. And, when I'm coaching people, like that's step one, right? Understand what you're currently doing. So hopefully that was helpful, Tristan. Pigeon, that's a funny name, Pigeon. Pigeon asks, what's your approach to a 180 to 100 yards? Good question. So if I understand your question, I think, strategically, less so about like what club you're hitting, right? Because that could be a bunch of different clubs. But yeah, especially in that, 150 to 200 to 225 range, right? Managing your expectations is so key. Because you watch a lot of pro golf, you see like, they show 9-iron after pitching wedge after 9-iron from 150, to 5 feet to 6 feet, right? You're really just watching a highlight reel. There's plenty of other also pro golfers on the same golf course hitting 9-irons to 30 feet and 2-putting for par that they're not going to show you because, your job is to be entertained. Right? So understanding your expectations. Like my target from 150 and anywhere out, even 125. My target is the green, right? I don't really care where the pin is. If I hit the ball in the green, I hit a good shot, right? Obviously, if I have 120 and I have a gap wedge in my hand and I have a middle of the green pin, I'm going to try to hit it close, right? Because, that's still my target. The middle of the green is my target. If the pin happens to be there, the ball might end up close, right? But, golf strategy says the more greens you hit, the better your scores are going to be. So that's my approach. Pigeon asks 137 back pin top right. So even that I would say is not enough information, right? I need to know what are the conditions, right? I was playing the other day, I played early morning, and the fairways were very wet and dewy, right? And it took me a couple of swings to adjust to there being so little spin on some of those approaches. Like I hit a 7-iron that went 195 yards in the air because I just hit a flyer on a perfect swing from the fairway, right? On a downhill, maybe a little wind behind me shot. So accuracy is our goal with irons, not, distance necessarily. But let's say in your example, it's 137 to a back pin, right? And long is not good. So, I'm probably going to hit a pitching wedge and try and hit like a 130 shot, right? Again, I still need to know what the wind is doing because if it's 20 miles an hour into me, I might be hitting 8-iron, and trying to like flight a 150 shot, right? So conditions matter a lot in golf. We play outside. But I wanted to answer your question, Pigeon. If it's playing 137, right? So after I do all my math and my figuring, right? And I know the pin's in the back right, and it's playing 137 to the pin, I'm probably going to hit a smooth pitching wedge, which should go like between 130 and 135, with my 47-degree pitching wedge, right? And I'm just going to try to hit a straight shot, like somewhere, I'm going to aim maybe 5 yards left of the pin so that even my most right shot is still going to hit the green, hopefully. And, if it's playing 137, I only need to hit it like at the most 135 to try to take long out. It's probably a 3/4 pitching wedge, like, just a shoulder to shoulder type pitching wedge. But again, that's just, the more, information you have, the more able to dial in those numbers. Mr. Random says, you've been playing for 3 months. What should you shoot on an 18-hole course on average? Oh, I can't really answer that necessarily because have you played other sports, right? Is golf your first time, playing a ball and stick sport? Certainly if you played like baseball or hockey or cricket, other things, they can translate to golf to some extent. Have you been avidly playing for 3 months? Like you're practicing twice a week and playing once or twice a week? Are you going once a month for 3 months? I think anytime you're just learning and you're getting out there for the first time, like go out there and try to have fun. Try to hit some good shots. Learn about like how to get around the golf course. Try to find somebody who might be willing to help you like with some etiquette stuff or, pace of play. How do you fix pitch marks? How do you rake your bunkers, right? All the, being a good citizen of the game stuff that I, try to set a good example on. Man, I'll tell you, that feeling when I do it right is so addicting. It's just so flush and compressed. So, yeah, CJ, completely agree with you, my dude. Just get out there. If you're 3 months in, truly, like, try to hit some good shots, try to have fun, enjoy yourself out there, right? The scores will come if you really get serious and have, more time to dedicate. So, yeah, I'm with CJ. I think just go out there, try to have a good time. You're the CEO of your game. I agree with that. AJRC asks, what should be different mechanically between a driver and iron swing? Great question. And this is something that I've been working on myself on the golf course, trying to, not bring my iron swing feels to the driver. And mechanically, how are they different, right? So with the driver, we want to be, because the ball is teed up off of the ground, right? In order to hit the ball as far as we can, which is our goal with driver, while obviously not hitting it in hazards or penalty areas. Also, this could go a little more this way. Right, so the ball's teed up off the ground. And we want to hit it up into the air, right? We're trying to launch it with an upward angle of attack into the ball. Right, we're trying to hit it up into the air with not a lot of spin. Right, imagine if you had a tennis racket and you wanted to hit the ball really high and far. Right, you would kind of, have a low start and you would hit up into the air, right? Maybe with a little bit of top spin almost, right? So that's what you're trying to replicate with driver, hitting up onto it, into it. Whereas the exact opposite with your irons, right? So with your irons, the ball is sitting on the ground like this, and you need to deliver the club down into the back of the ball with the shaft leaning forward, right? I'm exaggerating it certainly here, right? But you want some amount of forward shaft lean on it with a descending strike into the ball. And so they are very different mechanically. Hopefully that helps, AJRC. Pigeon says, I'm about to come up on playing a year and practice when I can. I've noticed that every round is not great, but my scores are always getting better. That's great. Yeah, I mean, if you're continuing to make progress and improving your scores, that means you're on the right track. I'd say just keep doing what you're doing. Part of the reason why, in starting this channel and trying to recommit myself was I really had plateaued, right? I played between +1 and 1 handicap golf for the last 10 years. And there were some other reasons, like my life changed career-wise, and I'm able to practice and play a lot more and, do live stuff like this with you guys. And so the dynamic has shifted. I'm optimistic I'll be able to practice a lot more, and I certainly have been with the channel. But I just, you'd say, well, that's really good, right, John? +1, that's better than 98, 99% of all the golfers. Well, that might be true, but at the same time, I know I can be better than that, right? I've hit enough good shots. I just, I need to dial it in a little bit more and keep grinding. And I really want to play like +2 or +3 type golf. And, you know, having the channel and the support from all of you guys is definitely makes it that much easier, right, to put the work in. Alfie says, as a new player, this live is extremely helpful. Even just being here, listening to the answers of other people's questions is giving me little pieces of knowledge. That's awesome. I mean, that was the whole, that's, you know, why I started doing this, right? Is like, I learned a lot of these things on my own the hard way, and to be able to share some of that with you guys and, you know, continue to improve myself. I mean, that was the whole objective. So I'm super glad to hear that. Okay, so that's feeling really good. Yeah, I'm really glad that you know, this is beneficial, right? And I was talking earlier, but that's why I also wanted to start offering some coaching, so that, you know, if somebody's out there and saying like, man, I really like listening to this guy, and I think his approach and teaching style could be beneficial to me, like, how can I take that a step further, right? And I've done that with people in my own life, or, you know, locally here for a while, and I just said, like, you know, why not offer it? I think there's, you know, because again, I've already found out there's people out there who are like, yeah, you know, that could be for me. I want to give John a chance, right? You know, I think he can help my game. So I'm incredibly grateful to, number one, be able to offer that, you know, with this platform. But also that, you know, there are people out there who said like, yeah, that sounds great, let's do it. You know, so somebody saying like, I'm going to spend money out of my own pocket, that's, you know, the best endorsement you could get, in my opinion. Okay, so I want to answer AJRC's question. Hitting down versus, I'm talking your swing. How should you go out swinging more? Should your weight shift or rotation be different? I think yes, right? So for me, in the feels that I like to go back to, right, with an iron, I like to feel like I'm staying pretty centered in the backswing here, right? And then I like to practice that kind of downward shift, right, and stacking kind of into my left side, right? You know, and just, you can practice even without a club, just that move of, you know, shifting your weight from this front part of your foot into your heel, right? And that's the kind of the start of your downswing with the iron, is, you know, shifting laterally and moving the weight kind of back and away, right? So that you can stay really on top of it and make sure you're delivering that downward strike, right? Whereas with driver, for me, I feel like I hit my best, you know, I play my best off the tee when I do have like a little bit of, you know, a shift to get more behind it, right? And then I'm still, my weight still moves forward, but to me it feels like less so, right? Like I'm more, you know, not hanging back on it, but just in a more neutral, you know, I'm not fully stacked like I'm hitting an iron, right? Because I don't want to hit down on it. And I kind of shift, send the club back, and then it's just very centered. But I'm trying to keep my chest, you know, in this right shoulder kind of down, so I can launch the ball up into the air, right, and hit up on it. So hopefully that helps with a little more detail. Alfie asks, what do I do? I work in consulting, helping nonprofits and their fundraising, which is pretty cool. You know, like working with, you know, pediatric oncology people and people that are actually making a difference in the world. So that's pretty cool. I get to do that in my career time. Pigeon said, I went from topping and chunking every ball to now striking them pure, but my aim sucks. What is something that helps you aim? Wow, CJ already is way ahead of me. Way to go, CJ. Thanks for the help. I just started doing this myself, right? Because my alignment is something I struggle with too. And exactly like CJ just said, right? So if this is my, let's say this is my target line, right? Well, I'm going to get in behind the ball, and I'm going to kind of use my club as a straight edge. And once say I'm trying to aim 5 yards right of the pin, right? So I'm going to find that spot, right? And then I'm going to look and I'm going to say, okay, there's a little dark spot in the grass right in front of my ball, right? And I know because it's on the same line as that target, if I aim towards that spot, right, I should be pretty confident that my alignment, my club face are pointed where I want them to be, right? Because what I used to do is I used to get in here really closed and then be kind of looking over my shoulder almost, right? And then I'd be like, why am I hitting everything to the right? Well, I wasn't. I was hitting it straight. I was just aimed out to the right. So having that intermediate target has really helped me feel like I'm, much more confidently stepping in and saying, like, okay, I think, if I'm lined up to that spot, if I can aim my club at that little spot that's right in front of me, which I, should be able to do, and if I hit it right over that, it should be on my line. And then you're just kind of freed up to make the swing and absolutely flush it like you want to. So hopefully that helps. But yeah, CJ, great shout on the intermediate target. Oh, if you guys are enjoying the stream, you like chatting and learning about the golf swing and some different drills and stuff, you want to like and subscribe for more. I'm super grateful for all the support. It's really been unbelievable. Bando says, I'm late. Show us again. Show us what? But yeah, happy to answer your question, Bando. MHT Cameron said hi. Hey, MHT Cameron. And if you guys have a question or, something that's struggling in your own game that you want to get my take on, then drop your questions in the chat. We'll see what we can do. Gonna hit a few here because I've been yammering on and on and on. A little bit out of the heel there, but otherwise the strike was good. Oh, came out of that one. Can you walk through how you hit bunker shots? Yeah, certainly. So obviously I don't have a bunker here to demonstrate, but yeah, let me hit one more and then I'll grab a wedge and talk through it a little. Oh, getting steep. So first thing I'll say is it does depend on the conditions you're playing in and the type of sand. But when I set up to a bunker shot, I like to be pretty square, and I play them, with a pretty neutral, maybe a tiny bit of opening in the face, but I don't like to really open the face a ton like you see guys do, unless there's a really high lip, right, and you really have to elevate the ball quickly. But for a pretty standard bunker shot, right, I like to, again, open the face a tiny bit. My stance is going to open slightly, right? And then you're really just trying to give it a good thump, maybe about an inch behind the ball, right? And so what one great drill to practice is if you do have a bunker where you can practice, grab a tee or even a club, right? And just draw a line about an inch behind the ball. And that's your target, right? Because when you hit a bunker shot, you're not actually, the club doesn't hit the ball, right? You just hit the sand underneath the ball, which propels the ball up and onto the green. And that really helped me understand how bunker shots work, right? So I'm not trying to hit the ball. I'm trying to hit the sand underneath the ball, and it's, I don't want to demonstrate here because I'm just going to skull it off of a tight lie, but, you just kind of get in there and give it a good thump. So hopefully that helps, AJRC. Alita Hansen and LB35 said hi. Hey guys, welcome to the stream. Just in here trying to stay hydrated. Although, even though it's diet, I know I shouldn't be drinking soda. Try not to. All right, let's hit some longer clubs here. I've got a 4-iron now. And I'm going to really try to exaggerate, that tempo, right? That nice, soft transition feeling like I'm letting the club just fall for a while until we send it, trying to gather as much of that speed into the back of the ball at the bottom. And I like doing even those, those kind of small swings, even with a longer club like this, right? Just to really feel like I'm, delivering a good crisp strike. And then you make the swings longer. You just build it up from there. LB35 says, get a lab putter. If lab wants to put me in their stable of guys, I would be thrilled to play a lab putter. I have tried one before. I tried the broomstick, the Mez 1 Max, I think it was. And I really liked it on short putts, but with the broomstick, I just could not get the speed control down after, a full year of trying it. So I let that one go and went back to the short putter. But I do think, like the Oz maybe, one of those. I haven't tried the short version ever, so. Oh, I tell you, the feeling of a flush long iron, like a 2, 3, 4 iron off the deck, one of the best in golf, really. You know what we'll do in a second? I'll show you guys the butter knife that I bring out for practice sometimes. And I think this is a drill. You call it a drill. I'm just going to hit some shots with this club. This is the old 3 iron from my blade set that we still got shafted up. Hopefully you guys can see this. This is a straight blade MB 3 iron. And I like bringing this thing out, if my ball striking gets a little off, or, just to really get my swing dialed, right? Because there's nowhere to hide with a club like this, You gotta really deliver a good strike, or you're gonna have a bad time. Like that was fractionally out of the toe, and it feels horrible. I really like this as a way to, forces you to focus on the strike. Something like that. Just get that nice, smushy, flush feeling. That's what we're looking for. Incredible, guys. 55 likes on the stream. And then, if you hit a few of those really good, you go back to your own club, even if it's a, pretty small, like CB type profile like this. Oh my goodness. It's like cheating. Anybody playing golf this week? Anybody got any exciting rounds coming up? I think it was Tyler or somebody earlier said they had a 36-hole tournament coming up. That's pretty exciting. I've got a few tournaments coming up. Got a member guest I got invited to play in at a great course, so that'll be exciting. Hopefully can bring you guys some content from there. Give you a hint. It's a Core Crenshaw golf course. CJ says, I'm at the driving range about to play 9. Awesome. Saw you live, wanted to watch until my tee time. Well, I appreciate you checking out the stream, you know, from the golf course. That's really cool. And then I think Maxton said no because of rain. It's been a familiar story for me too, Maxton. Gosh. So addicting. When you do it right, that swing is so easy. Just really got to stay centered, right? My tendency is to just start creeping too much shift off the ball. I can't believe we hit 1,000 subscribers live on the stream. I mean, credit to you guys, but yeah, seriously, I mean, crushing all of my wildest goals. My goal for the whole year, for my first year on YouTube, was 1,000 subscribers. So, 4 months in to be ahead of schedule, I mean, super cool. I just feel very grateful. She won't stop crying? Why don't we just put her leash over here? She can stay with me.
I'm in the middle of cooking. So
Okay. Yeah, you gonna hang here? We do this. Ready? Oops. Man down. CJ says puppy dog wants to watch you absolutely flush some irons. Yeah, I think so. All right. I'll be right back. We're going to shut this door. You stay there. You want to watch us hit some golf shots? Yeah? You want to watch us help the people? Well, we can't swing if you're going to stand there. We can't swing if you're going to stand there. Huh? What are we going to do with you? What are we going to do with you? Yeah. Yeah. You got to stay right here. Oh, no. Come on, come sit. When's the dog getting their own irons? I know, it's a great question, right? Let me see if I can get this back set up somewhat nicely. Wow, 56 likes on the stream. You guys are crazy. All right. Back here with the 4-iron. Again, really focus on my posture, which has been an area of focus this year. Like CJ said, flushers only. Oh, was that scary? I know, we hit it so fast. Yeah. Who else has got questions? Who else is working on their game? Davis said, hey, Davis. Oh, T asked, what's the best drill to control low point? Again, like you guys have heard me say, I'm going to go back to, my favorite thing. Just, you got to slow it down, right? So if you're trying to work on low point, work on it at like half speed, right? And just, whether it's, if you're hitting it heavy or hitting it thin, right? You'll make a lot of progress even faster by just slowing down. Make some, slow speed, half swings, and just, I like to make sure you're presetting, how you want to deliver the club into impact, right? So, having the club, the handle in front at setup, and then making sure that you replicate that condition into impact, right? And you've seen me do on the channel before these kind of preset impact drills and then hitting shots, right? Something like this where you take your normal setup and then get into your impact position and make a swing from there, right? And just feel how different that is. So hopefully that helps with low point. That's a good one. If I'm slicing left, what is something you'd recommend me to do? Are you left-handed? Is that if you're slicing to the left, I would assume that means you're left-handed? No, I'm right. Oh, if you're right-handed swinging and it's going too much right to left, right, and you're hitting a hook, that means the club is coming too much from the inside out with the face closed, right, relative to that path. And that's causing the ball to have that big right to left, spin to it. And so what we need to do is neutralize both those conditions, right? So have the club swinging more to the left and have the face be more open relative to that path, right? So a great way to practice that is make your normal, stance and setup. And then, and then from here, instead of trying to hit it, straight, right, and probably producing that big draw, we're going to aim straight and then hit it out to right field, right? So you're going to force yourself to hold the face off and, try to pay attention to what feels different, right? What am I doing differently to produce that shot? And teach yourself how to hit a big cut, how to slice it, right? And you're trying to build those skills of understanding path and club face and how those, change the ball flight that you see, right? And this idea of, I love the idea of fighting fire with fire. So if you're hitting a big hook, try to hit some big slices, right? And see if you can get your body to, really feel like what do I have to do to produce that shot, right? Whereas if some of you are out there saying, well, that's great, but I hit a slice. Well, it's the same idea, right? You just, instead of slicing it, you'd say, well, I have to learn how to hit a big hook, right? And how do I do that? And you're trying to build those skills of club face control and path control. Dax Tucker said hi, and that he loves the stream. That's awesome. I appreciate your feedback, Dax. That's very cool. If you guys are like Dax and you're enjoying the stream, you want to like or subscribe, that would be super cool. Man, swing is feeling good today, guys. Right? Right? Yeah. Isn't it exciting when we hit the ball well? Yeah. I know. I know. Did no one pay attention to you for a minute or two? Is that what happened? Is that what happened? Okay. Okay. Nathan Thompson, hey Nathan, asks, how do I hit a hybrid? Good question. My best advice is try to hit it, as if it was almost like an iron, right? So don't worry about the fact that it's a bigger head. I'll grab my 7 wood, which is similar to a hybrid, just a little bit bigger, right? and, you know, just to demonstrate. And you want to feel still, you know, even with a club of this length, right? But, you know, grab your hybrid, and you want to still feel like you're hitting, you know, down to some extent on it, right? And just hit it like it was an iron. And I think you should have pretty good results that way. Don't worry about the fact that it's a hybrid, and, you know, don't feel like you got to help it up in the air. You know, it's got plenty of loft on it. CJ says the dog confirms the pure iron swings. Yeah, she, the first 4-iron that I absolutely flushed, she was like, oh man, I don't know if I like that sound. I know, it's scary at this high speed, isn't it? Feels really good right now. And it's nice that I have them all on video so I can go back and watch the swings that I like. That's another thing, guys. Use your own swing as a reference point. I have some, you know, whether it's different periods over the years or different, you know, swings that I liked. You know, I just have them saved in my phone, and sometimes I'll go back and watch my own swing and say, oh man, I really like that feel, or, you know. You'd be surprised at how much of what you put into your brain becomes, you know, what you end up producing. Right, like watch Freddie Couples or Jake Knapp swing for 5 minutes before your next round. I'm really loving this net return net, guys. Like, if you're like me and you just love bashing balls, I mean, I can hit 4 balls in a minute probably if I wanted to. Any tips on finding your own swing when a traditional won't work? I mean, every swing is going to be a little unique. But, you know, if you look at some unconventional swings like a Matthew Wolff or a Jim Furyk, right, your swing can look all kinds of different ways. There's 1,000 different ways to, you know, move the club around, right? But what most matters is the impact position, right? Are you consistently striking the ball solidly, right? There's a ton of ways to get there, but impact is what matters most, in my opinion. So I would focus there if, you know, a traditional swing isn't working for you. Ben's Builds said, how do you hit a far drive? Well, high club head speed, low spin, high launch is the equation. I would suggest that most people are better off hitting the center of the face, you know, learning how to do that consistently before they go to like workouts or equipment changes. I was a little early on that one. But that's just my 2 cents. Any tips for getting the left hip out of the way? Struggle with clearing. Yeah, Matthew, I'm glad you asked this question. It's a great question. I struggle with this myself. What's been helpful for me in trying to work on this, number one, improving my hip and ankle mobility, you know, to be able to push off the ground, right? And then also just have the flexibility to, you know, have enough rotation, both internal and external rotation in my hip. That was what held me back for a long time. But as far as like drills, I really think it's just about exaggerating it, right? So feeling like, what does it feel like to make a downswing where I stay in my posture and my left hip moves out of the way? I like TPI has it, you know, they call it the box, right? And you can imagine like a glass box, and the only thing that's allowed in the box is your arms and the club, and you're not allowed to touch the box with your body or your hips or anything. So if you early extend, you're going to hit the glass box, right? So in order to do that, you have to shift out of the way and then feel like your left hip is, again, moving back and away from the ball. A drill I like to do, first one, lead hand only swings, right? It's really hard to overextend, early extend when you swing with just your lead arm, right? So you kind of hold it out in front of you, make a backswing, step forward, and swing, right? It would be really weird, oops, accidentally hitting balls all over the place, right? If you early extended doing this, it would be pretty strange, right? Like it just wouldn't feel natural, especially when you include this step. So that's a good one to feel like, oh, I actually have to, the movement helps you do it to get your left hip out of the way. And then once you get that down, I like to make, again, do it at a slow speed. You're not doing this at full speed, right? But make a backswing, and then you're actually going to step away and back. And just, again, you're trying to exaggerate that feel. So something like this, right? A backswing, a step to the left, and then you see I'm fully cleared, right? That's an exaggerated way you could work on that move. Hopefully that helps. There's golf workouts, yep. Alfie asked, where'd you get the net? Got the net from Net Return, from their website. Hey, Clicks, what's up? Do you remember me? Of course I remember Clicks. Clicks is one of our OGs, right? I think we ran out of OG tickets when we hit 1,000 subs on the stream earlier. Nice rotative swing. If you keep hands more in front during backswing, you could stabilize club face more. Interesting analysis, Fabian. Yeah, I think, yeah, I agree. My hand depth has never been great, right? Sometimes I get a little too, just out this way and not, kind of fully turned. But I'm not sure I agree that has to do with how stable the club face is, right? To me, that's more about, like, are your hands and wrists, like, over or under rotating? Right, like, moving the club face relative to the path, which I work really hard not to do, right? Trying to, not have a ton of club face rotation. But you're not wrong in that I would benefit from a little bit more hand depth this way, right? Because when I get quick on the way down and I don't have the depth, then it gets steep, right? It goes this way. But I don't necessarily disagree with you. Mega Miles said, hey, Mega Miles. CJ, I've been here since 500 subs. Yeah, you have. CJ's one of our OGs, top commenters, top subscribers. I started to get there on my lesson, but found I was leaning back on the shot and just spinning out with weight on back foot. Yeah, that's the tough part, right? Is you want to feel like you're clearing, but without going like this, right? Not clearing off your back foot. So that's where kind of the balance comes in. This little dance of, like, I go back and then I, land on my heel and I'm kind of balancing while I'm, imagine your left heel is like a pivot point, right? So when you make the downswing and your hip's clearing, this hip is rotating, right? That's you'll hear teachers talk about, like, turning the corner. Right, that's what they're talking about, right? This is the corner, and then you're trying to get around and clear with the left hip. So I think it's more of a byproduct than, like, an active swing thought, but Gregory asks, is it a good swing thought to have your hands and left hip meeting at impact? That's an interesting one. I've never heard that before. But my general advice is the best, feel or swing thought is the one that works for you. And what I describe to somebody, in terms of feels might be totally different, right? Like, I don't, I'm more focused on, like, what my right shoulder's doing, or I need to feel my elbow getting in front of me, right? Whereas I've never once been like, man, if I just get my right elbow kind of tucked, that's a key feel for me. But for some people, they're like, that's the only thing that matters, right? Left hip and hands meeting at impact. I don't know if I fully agree with that. Because at impact, my hands are kind of more I feel like they're going out towards the target line, right? While, everything else. Imagine if you had something heavy like a kettlebell, right? And you needed to like throw it as far that way as you possibly could, right? You would swing it back and then throw it right away from your body, right? So that's more what I try to feel like, the dissociation between my upper and lower bodies, right? So my lower body's going this way, and I'm keeping the club in the hands, on this wide arc towards the target. So hopefully that's helpful. Mike Skill asks, do you feel the hands come down in the backswing like you force them to come down? Nice. These are great ball speed driver numbers. Great point. Thanks. Hip and grip, it's what I've seen to keep your hands from getting stuck behind you. Yeah, I think if that is I've always had kind of the opposite problem where my hands get really quick. But yeah, I think if that feel works for you, then go with it. Again, like I said, it's all about impact. Do you feel the hands come down in the backswing? Like, do you force them to come down? We were talking about this earlier, and I used to really struggle with, I get to the top of the swing and then just be like, all right, time to go, and just rip the handle down, right? Whereas if you think about it, it's like a pendulum, or if you ever seen like the pirate ship ride at an amusement park, right? Where, they put some speed at the bottom and it goes up and then it kind of hangs for a second and it falls back down fast and then slow at the top again, right? That's what we're kind of trying to replicate with our golf swing. And for me, I used to get up to the top and then just really kind of throw it down, right? And that's not the way to generate speed. So it's not so much for me feeling like I'm lowering the hands as I'm just allowing them time to like have a change of direction, right? So now I'm trying to feel more like I send it up, the club hangs there for a second, and then I, kind of catch it on the way down, and I'm throwing it into the ball, because I want the speed at the bottom, right? It doesn't matter how fast the club's moving back here. What we care about is how fast the club is moving when it hits the ball. So trying to feel more of that like pendulum, right? That's, I was talking about having less grip pressure. That helps, right? We send it up and it hangs for a second and then we fire it back down into the ball. So that's what I'm trying to work on feeling. Not so much like my hands are lowering. That's just kind of what happens naturally, right? But yes, we are. I think we're saying the same thing different ways. And it just, it's about time and space, right? When you're early extending and you're getting stuck, there's no space, there's no time. You have to time it up so perfectly, right? Whereas when you give yourself that time and space, right? Look at all this room I have to hit. If the face is a little shut, I can adjust, there's all this stuff you can, just having more time and space is really the goal. Got to make sure you twirl it when you flush it. Gregory says, thanks, brother. Yeah, of course. Happy to help, right? That's the objective here. Trying to share some of what I've learned with you guys, have a little more fun out there, play some better golf. We're all in this this journey, this quest to improve together. Little stuck there. Telling you guys, the more work I put in, the better everything feels. Isn't it crazy how that happens? I will say too, trying to mimic like a Tommy Fleetwood type finish has helped my ball striking a ton, right? Because you gotta, to be able to slow down fast, right? Really forces everything into some good positions. You know, trying to feel like my swing is almost just from 9 to 3, right? It's not, there's nothing way back here. It's just, you know, send it up to 9, boom, stop at 3. And flusher. Just one after another, right? That's the goal. Put in work, work, work. Put in work. Let me catch up here quick. Thanks for being here, Maxton. Appreciate you checking out the stream. Edward Sai said, do you flex your right hand back on the downswing? Mike said, never seen a golf streamer before. Thanks for the explanation. All right. Do I flex my right hand on the downswing? I don't think so. Not that I can feel. I try to have my right hand feel, you know, pretty loose. Like most of the golf swing is a left side movement, right? Like I could take my right side fully out of it and still, oh, I toe shanked that one, but that's a good drill, right? Just make some left-handed swings, right? And that helped me. That was very eye-opening for me, right? I used to be a really, you know, kind of right-handed player, steep, right? And you can do all, you know, you can do the whole golf swing just right here, right? Just boom. That's why I always tell people, right, when you're gripping it, a lot of people show you the grip in like a neutral position, right? But then if you take that grip and you try to deliver the club with the handle forward, well, then the face is open, right? This is actually a weak grip if you grip it neutral with a neutral, you know, shaft angle. So I always tell people, set up out like you want to hit the ball, right, with the shaft leaning forward, and then grip it from there. Right? Like, why not set up in the same way that you want to hit the ball? Curtis family, I get hung up on the downswing. What's a good drill? Tell me more, Curtis family. You say, like, you know, are you getting stuck? Are you slicing it? When you get hung up on the downswing, what do you mean? Because I think it might be actually a backswing type of issue. You know, Hogan never taught people any downswing feels, right? Like the downswing is just really the result of the backswing. So I'm trying to feel like I'm not really manipulating anything at all in the downswing. But tell me more, and I'll try to answer your question. Mike Skill said, is it bad to have the same ball spots on your irons? If your irons were all the same length, couldn't you just always put the ball in the middle? Yeah, there are single-length irons, like Bryson is a single-length iron guy. So there is, you know, that is a thought process that people have. But I do say, I think, I I try to play my irons out of a pretty tight window, right? Like obviously a 4-iron might be a little further forward than a 9-iron, but like I try to have all my irons, my wedges, play pretty much out of, you know, the dead center of my stance. You know, 4-iron might be like a little bit further, but not much. Benton Mills asks, what irons do you have? These are the Tacomo 301 CB irons. These are really, really solid. Whatever works for you, Mike. Yeah, good idea, CJ. Yeah, and again, generally speaking, you know, a ball further back will have it start further to the right, and further forward will start further left. You're okay. You're okay. Come sit. Let's do a quick refresh and just get a final. Oh, I know. Is it time for your dinner? All right, guys. That is going to be it for today's stream. Thank you so much for hanging out. Amazing support. 1,000 subscribers on the stream was so cool. Thank you for being here. Like and subscribe, all that good stuff. We'll be back doing more of this. If you want coaching, check out the link in the description. And we'll see you guys next time. So thanks for being here. This has been awesome.